Hi guys and gals, and welcome back to another Bork No Game video. Today's video is dedicated to a skill guide, so let's jump right into it. So if you go into gear, and within gear, go into whichever set you pick, and let's select the weapon. Let's select the Sword of Bondage. You can get this in the Charm Metal Shop. Now the thing that I want to talk about with skills is skills use a particular damage type. For example, it'll calculate the physical attack when dealing damage. And that's why you level skills, because if you don't level the skill, you won't deal as much damage as you're supposed to. So let's talk about skill breakpoints and what I recommend to, level up certain skills. So on the left here, you'll see that level 5, the breakpoint for it is 2060. The breakpoint for level 10 is 8260 total EXP. And the breakpoint for level 15 is a whopping 18,600, right? This is all in Mimidae's notes. I'll have links in the description. The biggest thing that I want us to take note of is that level 5 is a weapon that you will use for a couple of weeks, or you feel like it'll be at least, a couple of banners that you're going to be holding on to this weapon. Now, level 5 is also a place where I tend to keep, for example, this S rank sword that I got to SR. I'm keeping my skills at level 5 for this weapon because I know I'm going to be using it for a couple weeks. It's going to be hard to transition it out of my deck, so that's why I kept it at level 5, right? Now the same thing applies to supports. Ideally keep it at level 5. You might even be willing to increase it depending on how valuable you think the book is. And I can't give you a guideline for how great a weapon is because it's based off of your guild, and it's based off of what you think is going to be the best for you. So for example, if you want to level a weapon to level 10, I would only do that for weapons that are natural SRs. So let's look at the Sword of Bondage again. And level 10 is essentially weapons where you're going to be using it for a couple of months and you don't see it fading away anytime soon, right? This is it's a little bit harder to get to this level. Level 5 is much more achievable. Some people think level 7 is better. I will agree with them, because technically, look at this. Level 7 is 4,050 and it's half the cost of level 10. But to me, level 5 is just as good. It's up to you. It's double the cost of, level 5, but level 7 is still a good breakpoint to achieve. So either shoot for 5 or 7, but I feel like 5 is just easier to do, right? Now that we've talked about level 5 and level 10, let's talk about the very last skill breakpoint, which is level 15. Level 15 is essentially a weapon that you think you're going to be using for at least minimum a year, or it's going to come off of your deck for a very long time. Now you're probably wondering, well, why do you have it break down in this weird way where your story skill is at level 14, your Colosseum's at level 10, and the Colosseum support is at level 6? That's all the things that you said. It kind of hurts my brain a little. Well, the reason why I have the story skill at level 14 is because it's a tier 4 story skill. It's going to take a long time before this gets power crept. For example, a tier 3 will never be a tier 4, and it'll take a long time for a tier 5 weapon to come out. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this for at least a while, especially on my mono physical attack like Conquest, Guerrilla, what have you. All those PvE game modes that story skills cover, swords are really good at it because single target damage is good for story skills, right? So that's why I have it like that. Let's look at a weapon that I feel is really fantastic for just leveling up in general, Lord's Hammer. See, level 15. I think this weapon is one of those weapons. It's a royal user service weapon if you're curious, because it has Dauntless Courage 2 for Colosseum support, and it has a tier 3. So let's cover, the difference between a story skill, Colosseum skill, and the Colosseum support. Now, story skills are pretty much all PvE related. Ideally, don't go too crazy leveling up AoE weapons story skill. You'll notice that my story skill, even though this hammer is going to last me forever, is at level 7. And the reason why is because story weapons are best left to be leveled on your single target weapons. So for example, my Sword of Humility right here, it is at level 10. And the reason why I have it this way is because I want to eventually run a mono physical deck on certain PvE events. Obviously, that's null and void when it comes to things like Ogre, like it does jack, right? I know that. But in future events, I can use this thing to run a mono physical deck. Now, in order to, not hurt myself, because I'm running a mono physical deck for a story, I'm going to be leveling up my spears so I have a mono magical deck. And I know it's not single target, but I don't want to invest in bows because as a light spender, it's still hard for me to invest in every single skill, right? It's not easy to get, Coliseum or like skill gems in general. So I don't want to overextend myself by building multiple weapons, and that's why it's harder for me to recommend Salad Grid in the later game, because you're going to be investing a lot of skill gems into different weapons, and it's not just about points, it has to do a lot with skill levels, because I've increased my damage exponentially ever since I started increasing, my skill levels for particular skills, right? Because if you don't level these skills, you essentially won't be as effective as you're supposed to be. Let's jump right into the next topic, and let's talk about Coliseum. Coliseum skills are an entirely different beast and don't really apply the same logic, because you have two things to factor in. You have the Coliseum skill and the Coliseum support skills. And pretty much AoE is king. If I saw anyone with a mixed grid and they were running both hammers and spears, that person is the deadliest person on the entire team. Because if they have 40k or 42k physical attack, 42k magical attack, and they have level 15, skills everywhere, Dauntless Courage, AoE, they're going to wreak havoc. They're going to cause grief, and the healers cannot keep up. Clerics will not be able to keep up. The Sorks, they won't be able, no matter how much they debuff them, it's not going to matter, because, the Vanguards are going to be dead all the time. And the Minstrels are going to be like, well, I can't buff anyone because they're constantly torrenting down AoE. AoE is by far the strongest thing in Coliseum. You can, it changes the entire fight. AoE weapons in Coliseum is addicting. You'll never go back to single target once you've killed two people at once. Swords are nice, swords are fantastic, but eventually in Coliseum you want to transition into AoE skills only, and that's why I highly recommend going Salad. I highly recommend going, specifically into spears and hammers and just stacking Dauntless Courages on those, and work it with your guild. Mono grid is mostly for story, alright? Imagine someone running mono magical attack on Ogre. It would, specifically spears or bows. Bows would obviously be more effective, and you would deal much more damage. So that's my thought process behind Coliseum. People are dead, you have less DPS going off, and plus there's a timer before you can revive. So if you can, eventually start looking at using more hammers, using more spears, and leveling those for your Coliseum skills, so eventually, you're constantly raining AoE, and you're causing the supports or clerics on the other side having more of a difficult time to keep up. And this is why, staves are just as frequent in banners, because they know that, they're releasing more AoE weapons into the pool. About Colo support skills really quick. Everyone knows about these, the big things. Dauntless Courage is the only skill that matters in Coliseum. The reason why you don't get the physical attack booster is because that's the support's job. Let the Minstrels buff. Let, everyone do their job. Don't try to just do more damage. As a Vanguard, that's your job. And then as a support, best things for Minstrels and Sorks are support boon. The more of those that you have, the more of those that you can stack, it gets much better. So let's talk about this really quick. So this is the proc chances for Dauntless Courage. I'll have the links down below if you want to look at them. Essentially, the higher you level it, the more likely chance it's going to proc. And the same thing with support boon, right? Pretty much the higher you like level it, the more chances it's going to have to proc. And I'll leave those links down in the description. Essentially, just know that if you get things to like level 10 and 15, that's when things are going to be insanely like, you know, more effective. And remember that each Coliseum support skill has its own separate proc chance. They do not stack. As in, if you have 10 level 15 Dauntless Courages, then you have, you know, a 10% chance on, you know, that one Dauntless Courage, another 10% chance, so on and so on and so on, right? Let's talk about the last set of skills, which is the armor skills. Essentially, these are not worth leveling yet because armor is constantly getting power crept. So don't really worry about being like, oh, I'm gonna level this like mad and, you know, I'm gonna be like the best armor. No, just don't do that. It takes forever. It only applies to story, and there's not a lot of story, you know, support skill gems to level up armor. And that's about it. That covers like my skill guide. So things to like go over is essentially, you know, level 5, those are weapons that you're going to keep for a couple weeks. You know, you see yourself just using them. Level 10, couple months, and level 15, you know, a year or longer, and you think that weapon is future proof. You can't really go wrong. You know, level 15 Royal User Service weapons, they're kind of like the most future proof weapons. So, you know, ideally fill your grid with, you know, Royal User Service weapons, and of course that's pay to win, but, you know, I have to tell you the truth, like where a majority of people are getting their power is via Royal User Service weapons, and they will last quite a long time. Just some updates to the channel, you know, if we hit 2,000 subscribers, you know, I'll do another giveaway. But also, work's getting very busy for me, so my upload schedule might vary in the future. I don't know if I can keep up with the daily uploads because life is just getting really busy. You know, I am like still a student, I still go to school. If you're wondering, it's college level, blah blah blah. So like, you know, if I feel like I'm slowing down, it's just because real life is getting in the way, and I wish I could do this full time, but you know, I have things that are pressing and things that are occurring that prevent to make this full time. But you know, one day, that's a dream. Anyways, that's it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. I will see you